Aloha mai kākou. This is Likalaka Me'elehiva again, and this is the fourth in our series about temples in this slideshow. It's for lecture number 8, and it's all about temples, and this is slides 88 through 106. I wanted to look at Waihau, which are temples that are for the fertility of the land, and which we recently learned were often built for Mo'ovahine to honor their presence in fresh water, vai and hau meaning cold water, but also for their presence to be requested in order to bring fish and fishing kinds of nutrients and resources into fish ponds and near the shores. So let's take a look at Vaihau. Well, what does a Vaihau look like? We don't really know, but we know it's not a luakini. And here are two heiau in Kona. One is called Ke'eku heiau, Ke'eku. It is a luakini, a very famous luakini. This is on the Kamehameha School's property, and both of these heiau have been refurbished, but they're in their exact location where they were built. Now, so the one at the top is Ke'eku, that's a luakini, and the one below is called Hapaiali'i, and we know that was not a luakini. And notice that the walls are very different. This is a platform temple. So I'm just wondering, was Hapaiali'i a waihau? It's both of them are built very close to the ocean. At high tide, the water surrounds both of these heiau. And what's interesting, I haven't actually measured Ke'eku, but I have measured Hapaiali'i, and the wall there that you see where the arrow is 0 degrees north. Huh, a 0 degree north wall. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So, what do we see here at Hapaiali'i? Notice how much the water is surrounding it in this photograph, and notice the uprights that are at the edge of Hapaiali'i. And again, I'm asking, is this a Waihau temple? We don't really know. The next few slides are from my friend Colleen Uhiva, and this is what she says. The next diagram illustrates the horizontal movement of the sun. The northern boundary is called the Ala Polohiva Akane Tropic of Cancer. This marks our summer solstice. The further southern boundary is called Alapolahiva Akanaloa, or the Tropic of Capricorn. This boundary marks our winter solstice. The line in the middle is called the Pico o Wakea. This marks both of the equinoxes. The annual time was kept by watching the sun's movement. And Kalinu Uhiva is one of our brilliant Hawaiian astronomers. In fact, the most brilliant Hawaiian astronomer. Yes, so we're glad to have her photos and her knowledge in this slideshow. So here's a slide from Kalinu Uhiva, and you can see that the green line is the Alapolo Hiva Akanaloa. This is a diagram facing west. The middle line, the white line, is Kapiku o Kahonu, or the Pico of Wakea, and that shows us where the sun is when it's in equinox. And then the red line is Alapolo Hiva Akane, and that shows us when the sun is in summer solstice. So green Kanaloa is the winter solstice. The middle, the Wakea line as I call it, is the equinox, when the sun is rising at equinox and setting at equinox. And then the red line is when the sun is rising and setting in summer solstice, Kani. So you will remember that Kanaloa in the Raiatea stories is the father of Wakea, and the father of Wakea is the parent of Kane. Interesting. So, Calais tells us that Hawaiians built several sites to observe and track the solar movement. These structures were called heiau. Hei means to capture, and au means time. A heiau was a calendar tool for Hawaiians. Hapaiali'i is the name of this heiau. Its southern corner marks the Alapolahiva a Kanaloa. The center marks the Pico o Wakea. Its northern corner marks the Ala Polohiva Akahani. Let's see how this works. There's the red line. This one is for Kanaloa. There's the white line. This one is for Wakea. There's the green line. This one is for Kane. So this temple faces west, and that red line represents the sun when it's setting on the Kanaloa line. That's winter solstice. The white line will show us when the sun is setting over that upright, and that is when the sun is in equinox. And then the green line shows us when the sun is setting at that upright at the summer solstice. So we have the whole year measured here. Okay, so I'd like you to now look at this slide. This is a map of Hawaii, the Hawaiian archipelago, which actually goes from Hawaii Island down in the southeast corner all the way to Holaniku or Midway up in the north west corner. And in between there, we have a couple of islands that are interesting. One is Nihoa, the other is Moku Manamana. Can everybody say Nihoa? Right, and Moku Manamana. And they have interesting temples on them. Now, Moku Manamana, the purple star that you see in front of you, is exactly on the Tropic of Cancer, which in Hawaiian is called Alapolohiva Akane. And this is when the sun is in summer solstice, when the sun is in, around that area, is rising and setting in that area, on that line. In fact, that's the farthest north the sun will go. And that's why below that is called tropics, because it's tropical weather. And above that is temperate. Yeah? Let's go to see what these islands look like. Now, Nihoa Island is 150 miles northwest of Ni'ihau. I know many of you have not been to Ni'ihau. But I went there with a number of people that Puakanahele had trained in protocol. And our job was to go to Nihoa, to this island, to go onto the island and to do ceremony to reconnect Nihoa to the rest of the Hawaiian Islands. Now, if you don't know where Nihoa is, it's very hard to find because you can't see it from Niihau. So we were with Nainoa on Hokulea, and he had a sail plan from the old chant. It said that you should have Lehua as the backdrop. Lehua Island is just north of Niihau, and to hold a steady course, and you'll reach Nihoa. So we left Lehua at sunset, and most of us went to sleep on the Hokulea, and then we sailed along on a straight course out of Lehua, and in the morning, Nihoa was in front of us. Yeah, this island. Now, when I first saw the island, I thought it would be pretty easy to get on. And if you look at the bay, it says Adam Bay, and the left-hand side of Adam Bay is actually kind of a gentle slope. When I first saw this island and I saw pictures of it, I thought, no problem. Even though I'm kind of old and I had a hard time walking at the time, I'll be able to do this. And this was way back in, I think it was 2004 we went. Yeah, I think it was about then. But when we got there, we found out that the monk seals lived in that bay, in Adam Bay, and you can't go anywhere near them. They are protected species, and they do bite you, for one thing. And they're bigger than people are, so it wasn't a good idea to go to that part. In fact, went to this landing where I have my arrow, and there's a cliff there, and it's a cliff that we climbed. Now, when I saw the cliff, I said to everybody, "Oh, I can't climb a cliff. I'm too old. So you folks go on up, and I'll wait here at the bottom. And when you're all done with ceremony, you can come back and get me." They said, "No, Auntie, you can't stay here because pretty soon this whole area will be underwater. You have to climb the cliff." So the people dragging me up and other people pushing me up, I finally got to the top of the cliff. And I sat down. I was so tired climbing the cliff. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, here's some rocks here. Why don't we do ceremony here?" The person in charge of doing ceremony, in fact, finding a place to do ceremony, was Kaumakaiva. Kaumakaiva is the grandson of Puakanahele and was tasked with taking us to where we were going to go. So he went on looking where he was going, and you know, when you see this mountain, you're going to see this just steep cliffs. We finally found a place. He found a place that he chose Turned out to be Heiau number 50. You'll see where it is marked on the map. And the only places that were big enough for 10 people to lie down were actually on the temples because the cliffs there are so shallow. I mean, they're so steep, and the flat areas are so shallow. So we all spread out and we rested in. We were going to do ceremony at midnight. That was what was said. So we were waiting there at Heiau 50, number 50. And this is what Nihoa looks like. So you can see the cliff that we climbed. Can you imagine me climbing that cliff? That was the last cliff I ever climbed. And then you can see how far away Heiau 50 is. Now I gotta tell you, when I came down that cliff the next day, because we did ceremony that night and then we came down the next day, it was amazing to actually get down the cliff. I was very worried because there's nothing to hold on to really except clumps of grass. There's no trees or anything. And when I got back into the ocean, I was so happy that I hadn't broken any bones coming down the cliff. I didn't care if the monk seal bit me. I didn't care if a shark bit me. I had not broken a bone. Very happy. So there I was. That's the cliff. And you can imagine walking along the cliffs of that island to get to the Heiau number 50, how difficult that was. Good thing I had a walking stick with me. Here's a diagram of our temple number 50, and the blue arrow shows where the entrance was. So once we found the temple, everyone else went to another place to lie down in the shade. I just said, I'm staying here. Now, you got to know that this whole island is full of birds. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of birds, and they're screaming and yelling, and they're totally wild, and they don't think that they have to worry about people at all because people hardly ever go there and certainly don't live there anymore. So we were told to wear brand new clothes when we went there. We couldn't take anything old except for our ho'okupu. And the ho'okupu was actually frozen before we took it so that it wouldn't take any bugs. We had a blue tarp that we actually sat on and pulled over us when we wanted to go to sleep. And it was a good thing we had that blue tarp because the birds kept landing on us even when we were under the blue tarp. They thought we were rocks. Yeah. So what I want to tell you is this place is full of birds. Lots of birds screaming and yelling. Aukapo pokeo. All night and all day. So when it was midnight, we went onto the temple to do our prayers. And immediately that we started ceremony, I looked up and I saw the North Star. Hokupa'a. It was right in front of our face. Right there. The North Star. It was quite amazing. I was like, wow. And then, as we were praying, I looked up over my right shoulder. I saw that Wakea Orion was rising over a little cliff that kind of protected the Heiau. So, in essence, on this Heiau, the North Star was right in front of us, and Wakea or Orion, that signals east, was rising over us. So, we were standing where X marks the spot, right in the middle of a space that was north, south, and east, west. And I thought that was quite amazing. That's the first time I'd ever been in any ceremony where I observed that happening. So when I came back from Nihoa, I went to look at all the archaeological reports and I found this map and I found out, in fact, that wall was a 0 degree north wall. 0 degrees north. And we used that wall to measure north, south, east, and west. Huh, that was kind of interesting. And it made me think, how many more temples are 0 degree north walls? So I've been looking at that for the last 10 years or so, just checking out different temples. Let's see what we find. Oh, the next island we went to, before we go to any more temples, the next island we went to was Mokumanamana. Now, Mokumanamana the name means the island with lots of branches of mana or different kinds of power, spiritual power. And this photo was taken by Dr. Pualan Kanhele. We went there for summer solstice one year. Here's a map of Mokumanamana, and interestingly enough, it's exactly on the Alapolo Hiva Akane, as I showed you before when we were looking at this is the purple star on the map. So here is our map of Mokumanamana. And if you look carefully, you'll see lots of dots. There are 33 temples on this island, but no one can live there because there's no water. There's no place to get water. It has to fall from the sky. So it looks as though people lived in Nihoa and they traveled to Mokumanamana to build temples and do different kinds of observations from those temples. Here's a photograph taken by Kalei Nu'uhiwa of Mokumanamana. It is 150 miles northwest of Nihoa, so again, you can't see it across the water. If you're on Nihoa, you can't see Mokumanamana. You have to know it's there, and you have to know how to sail to find it, because it's not that big an island. It's not that tall either. But notice how steep the cliffs are. I did not climb this one at all, and this was Kalinuhiva and quite a number of Puakanahele's family climbed the cliffs to get up onto the top where the heiau are. Let's take a look at these heiau. So there are 33 temples like this one, platforms with uprights, kind of remind us of Hapaiali'i. And this one happens to have one wall that's 0 degrees north. You can read about it in the archaeological books about Necker Island, and they call it Necker after an English captain, but actually the name is Mokumanamana. You see the upright pohaku, these mark the movement of the sun, just like the one in Hapaiali'i. And here's where the birds are akua. The birds totally control this island, and they're everywhere. And interestingly, they like to sit on the top of those upright stones. Those upright stones are teaching us to measure the movement of Kanehoalani, the akua of the sun. And here he is rising at Mokumanamana on June 21st of the summer solstice. So you can see how that summer solstice marks that island. And if you look at that little pu'u on the left-hand side of the photograph, it's actually connected to the bigger part of the island, but that's the landing area, and that's the cliff that people have to climb to get to the main part of the island. So we go back to the question, are 0 degree north heiau Waihau if they're not Luakini? Because both of them have 0 degree north walls. And some, like Luakini, have some human sacrifice, Waihau heiau do not. Isn't that interesting? Now please go to the next video with slide number 107. Mahalo.